In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump.
Okay, this is developing right now, and it marks a dramatic escalation in Washington. Congressman Al Green just stood on the House floor and launched an impeachment push against Trump, and he's not doing it quietly. He's doing it by quoting a Republican vice president, invoking Martin Luther King Jr., and directly challenging anyone in Congress to come debate him publicly about why he's wrong. This is not a continuation of previous impeachment efforts. This is not symbolic posturing. This is a member of Congress holding up a statement from Dick Cheney, the former Republican vice president, and saying that statement alone justifies removing Donald Trump from office right now. And here's what makes this explosive. Green isn't just filing paperwork. He's standing there saying he has zero regrets, that he'd do it again, and that if you disagree with him, come stand next to him on the House floor and explain why Trump shouldn't be impeached. He's issuing a public challenge to the entire Congress. This is the kind of moment that cuts through the noise. This is the kind of speech that forces the system to confront a question it's been avoiding. And what Green is saying, the specific language he's using, the legal framework he's invoking, all of it is designed to make this land differently than past impeachment attempts. Let me walk you through exactly what just happened and why this could actually have momentum in a way previous efforts didn't. So Green starts by flipping the question. People are asking him why he's doing this, and his answer is, why wouldn't I do it when I have language right here that motivates me to act? Then he pulls out a statement, Dick Cheney's statement on Donald Trump, published by NPR back in September 2024. And Green emphasizes this point immediately. Cheney was a Republican. I'm a Democrat. We were in different places politically. But when it comes to the country, we're in the same place now. So what did Cheney say? Here's the quote, and Green reads it twice for emphasis. In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. Never in 248 years. That's not hyperbole from a partisan activist. That's the assessment of someone who served as vice president under a Republican administration. Someone who was part of the national security apparatus for decades. Someone who lived through Watergate, through multiple constitutional crises, through Cold War tensions. And his conclusion is that Trump is the single greatest threat to the republic in American history. Green repeats it.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big.
In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. But Cheney didn't stop there. He went further. He said, as citizens, we each have a duty to put our country above partisanship and defend our Constitution. That's the language Green is invoking as his justification. Put country above partisanship. Defend the Constitution. And Green says those words inspire him. He believes Cheney is right. We have to put country above party. We have to defend the Constitution. And what does that mean in practice? It means defending liberty and justice for all, defending Fifth Amendment due process rights, defending 14th Amendment protections, defending First Amendment free speech. And here's where Green gets very specific about what triggered this impeachment push. The right to tell military members they don't have to follow illegal orders. In fact, they must not follow illegal orders. That's not optional. That's a mandate. And you have the right to say that without someone suggesting you ought to be hanged for saying it. Wait, what? Hanged for saying military members shouldn't follow illegal orders? Green explains. Trump apparently posted or amplified content from a third party that said, hang them, in reference to people in Washington whose behavior was characterized as seditious and punishable by death. And who are these people supposedly deserving execution? People who told military members not to follow illegal orders. So we're talking about Trump posting content suggesting that advising soldiers about their legal obligations is sedition punishable by death. That's the specific trigger for this impeachment push. And then Green does something really effective. He brings up federal law to illustrate the double standard. He cites Section 871 of Title 18 of the United States Code, the statute about threatening the president. If you're convicted of threatening the president, you face up to 5 years in federal prison, $250,000 in fines, a permanent felony record, restrictions on employment and rights, serious consequences. Green's point is sharp. If I said the president ought to be hanged, I'd be arrested immediately. You'd be arrested. Anyone would be. The president would make absolutely certain of it. You'd be indicted, you'd go to trial, you'd face severe penalties. But Trump posts content saying, hang them about people exercising protected speech, and what happens? He goes on Fox News afterward and says he didn't mean anyone should actually be killed. And that's supposed to be the end of it. Green asks, do you really think if I threatened the president and then went on some news outlet and said it was a mistake or a slip of the tongue, that would make it okay? Of course not. But Trump gets to make what Green characterizes as threats with complete impunity. Threatening judges, threatening members of Congress, no consequences. And here's where Green makes an argument that goes beyond just protecting specific individuals. He's talking about how these threats affect the entire system and every citizen. When the president threatens judges, it puts the judiciary itself in question. Think about it. If you're a regular person who has to go before a judge that the president has publicly attacked, how confident are you that judge can be completely objective? You start wondering if the judge's decisions are being influenced by fear of presidential retaliation or public attacks. We all depend on an independent judiciary at some point in our lives. We need to believe judges are making decisions based on law and facts, not based on whether the president is going to call them names or suggest they're enemies. When judges feel threatened, when they feel pressured, the entire justice system becomes compromised. And that affects all of us, not just the specific targets. Green says it directly. This is bigger than you as a person. It's about all of us. Threatening the judiciary, threatening judicial independence, not respecting separation of powers, it impacts everyone. We all might be judged at some point. We want to believe the judge will be objective, that they won't subject their judicial reasoning to the whims of what Green calls a reckless, ruthless, and lawless president. The same principle applies to threats against members of Congress. Green reminds everyone that there was already a member of Congress who was wounded in an assassination attempt. There were innocent bystanders harmed. When the president uses language like death and hang them, someone might take it to heart. This is about public safety for all of us. So Green says he has zero regrets for bringing these impeachment articles, none whatsoever. And then he issues a direct challenge that you almost never hear on the House floor. He challenges anyone to come stand with him right there and point out why he shouldn't have done this. Come stand here. Let's debate this before the world. Any one of you. I'm proud of what I've done. I would do it again. That's not typical congressional rhetoric. That's someone saying, I'm so confident in my position that I'm willing to defend it publicly against anyone who disagrees. Come debate me, right now, in front of everyone. And Green frames this as putting the country above some people. The country contains all the people. All the people are more important than any individual or small group. It's the country we're trying to save. But then he addresses the obvious question. How do you save the country without control of the House? Democrats don't have the majority needed to actually remove Trump through impeachment. So what's the point? Green's answer is that taking this action shows the country what's happening. It demonstrates that the nation is dissolving into something dangerous. We're already at the point, he says, of having someone who is maybe less than a dictator, but certainly authoritarian. We're getting close to that line. And here's where Green lays out the concentration of power argument. And it's worth paying attention to because this is the structural case for why impeachment is necessary, even without the votes to succeed. When a president controls one side of the aisle with a majority in the House, when that same president controls Republicans in the Senate, when that president has stacked the Supreme Court and gotten rulings people never thought the court would render, what's left? What mechanism remains to check presidential power? According to Green, all that's left is impeachment. That's the only remaining constitutional tool. Some people say, wait, be patient, pick your battles. Don't waste political capital on a symbolic gesture. And Green's response invokes civil rights history. They told Dr. King to wait too. And Dr. King said, the time is always right to do what is right. That's the framework Green is using. This isn't about political timing or strategic calculation. This is about moral necessity. What they did with these impeachment articles was not only right, it was righteous, because everything in those articles is true. And the pushback isn't that the articles are legally wrong or constitutionally invalid. The pushback is that this isn't the right time politically. But Green rejects that entirely. Following Dr. King's principle, the time to do what's right is always now, not later. Now, Green acknowledges that not everyone who agrees with him will join him publicly. Dr. King didn't expect everyone to do what was right when he was doing it. Similarly, Green understands that political realities prevent some from taking this stand openly. But here's what he asks. Don't assault the people who are standing up for you in clever language. Don't attack those taking this action. We may fight back, but his point is, this is bigger than any individual in Congress. It's bigger than Congress itself. This is about what kind of country will be left when this president leaves office. That's what we're dealing with. And Green says his Republican colleagues across the aisle are very much aware of how Trump is encroaching on separation of powers, how he's threatening judges with what Green calls abusive, vituperative language. When you threaten one judge, you're threatening them all. So let's step back and look at what's actually happening here, because the technique Green is using is significant. He's not building this impeachment push on narrow legal technicalities or specific statutory violations that can get lost in procedural debates. He's building it on a bipartisan warning from Dick Cheney about existential threats to the republic. He's building it on constitutional principles about separation of powers and judicial independence. He's building it on the moral framework of the civil rights movement. That makes this harder to dismiss as partisan politics as usual. When you're quoting a Republican vice president, when you're invoking MLK, when you're talking about threats to judges and the independence of the judiciary, you're making a case that transcends normal political warfare. And the specific trigger, Trump posting content suggesting people should be hanged for advising military members about illegal orders, that's a concrete example that illustrates the broader pattern. It's not abstract constitutional theory. It's a real post with real implications about presidential conduct. Green is also doing something strategic by issuing that public challenge. Come debate me. Explain why I'm wrong. That puts opponents in an awkward position. If they ignore him, he looks like someone making a case nobody can refute. If they engage, they have to defend Trump's specific conduct in a very public way. Now, here's the bigger question this raises, and it's one Green himself is forcing Congress to confront. Are we normalizing behavior that would have been unthinkable for previous presidents? When the president can post content suggesting executions for protected speech, then go on friendly media and say he didn't really mean it and face no consequences, what does that establish as acceptable? When the president can threaten judges and members of Congress without institutional pushback, what precedent does that set? Green is arguing that impeachment, even symbolic impeachment without the votes for removal, serves a purpose. It establishes that some members of Congress said no, this crossed the line, this violated constitutional principles, this cannot be normalized. And the invocation of Dick Cheney gives this cross-party weight. Cheney wasn't some partisan activist. He was a Republican vice president who said Trump is the greatest threat to the republic in American history. If someone with those credentials is saying that publicly, it suggests this isn't just Democratic opposition. The concentration of power argument also resonates because it's structural, not personal. When executive power, legislative loyalty, and judicial appointments all align under one person, the normal checks and balances start breaking down. Impeachment is the emergency mechanism the founders created for exactly that scenario. Green is essentially saying we're in that emergency. The normal checks aren't functioning. The president controls his party in Congress. He's appointed justices who rule favorably. He's threatening the judiciary when it doesn't comply. What tools remain? And his answer is impeachment. Not because it will succeed in removal, but because it asserts that Congress still has a constitutional role as a check on presidential power. It maintains that there are limits, even if enforcing those limits is difficult. The MLK invocation is also deliberate. King faced criticism that he was moving too fast, being too confrontational, not being strategic enough. And his response was that moral action can't wait for perfect political conditions. The time is always right to do what is right. Green is applying that framework here. Yes, Democrats don't control the House. Yes, removal is unlikely, but that doesn't mean impeachment is pointless. It means impeachment is a moral and constitutional statement that needs to be made regardless of political math. Now, where does this actually go? That's the critical question. In practical terms, this impeachment push faces the same obstacle all recent impeachment efforts face. Republicans control enough votes to block removal. Without Republican defectors, conviction in the Senate is impossible. But Green isn't necessarily playing for removal. He's playing for the historical record. He's playing to establish a marker that says some members of Congress stood up and said this was wrong. He's playing to force votes that put everyone on record about where they stand. And he's using the strongest possible rhetorical ammunition. A Republican vice president calling Trump the greatest threat in American history. Martin Luther King Jr.'s principle that the time to act is now. Constitutional arguments about separation of powers and judicial independence. Concrete examples of Trump posting content suggesting executions. All of that makes this land differently than typical impeachment rhetoric. It's not about Ukraine or classified documents or any specific scandal. It's about a pattern of behavior that threatens constitutional governance itself. And here's where Green ends his speech, and the ending is important. He says he's made his point about impeachment, but now he wants to share something else. He knows who this president is. He's seen him before. He's going to a different topic now about who Trump really is as a person, because there's more to be said beyond what's in the impeachment articles. That's a tease. That's a promise of more to come. It suggests this isn't just one isolated impeachment push. Green has additional concerns, additional arguments, additional reasons beyond what he's already laid out. So we're looking at potentially the beginning of a sustained effort, not just one moment. And by framing it around Cheney's warning, MLK's principle and constitutional fundamentals, Green is trying to build something with more staying power than typical political controversies. Whether this gains traction beyond Green and a small coalition, whether it forces uncomfortable votes, whether it shifts any Republican positions, all of that remains to be seen. But what's clear is that Green has decided to take this stand publicly, cite his reasoning explicitly, and challenge anyone to explain why he's wrong. And he's doing it by quoting a Republican vice president's warning about threats to the Republic, which makes this moment particularly significant regardless of where it goes next. This is developing. This is consequential, and this is exactly the kind of constitutional confrontation that defines whether the system still has the capacity to check presidential power or whether we've moved into territory where those checks no longer function.